So we just touched on craftsman's mindset and the idea that you really want to hone your craft. But there are two other mindsets we want to embrace. One is a growth mindset, which we will talk about later on. The concept, for instance, like master adaptive learning, growth mindset's important. But the other mindset, the third one, is a creator mindset. And this ties how you want to frame learning. See, there's this idea that when you teach something, that's when you're going to most learn something. But it goes deeper than that. So if we look at Kolb's experiential learning model, we said that there are 4 phases within a cycle of learning. You have a concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, then active experimentation. Now, it's those last two that are often overlooked. You see, it's not good enough to just learn something new and think about it really, really hard. You have to actually apply it in some way that's meaningful to you. This is where having a creator mindset comes in. Creativity could be, for instance, a blog, an article, a video, an infographic, anything really. These also don't have to be public. You could be creating all of these resources just for yourself and just storing them on your own computer. Creativity also does not mean novelty. You aren't needing to reinvent the wheel or solve major problems that no one has ever done. It's mostly about repackaging things from your own viewpoint, lens, your how you individually frame it. It's hard to just learn for learning's sake. It's much easier to be learning while producing something and then using that something in some way, like we talked about, presentations, courses, blogs, handouts, algorithms, infographics. Then teach it, teaching whatever it is you design. Like we already said, you can create those things in private, but the idea of designing in public can be invaluable. There are a lot of people who are attaining their dream jobs because they showed their work while they were working on it, and they garnered interest in community around it. There's a great book, for instance, called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon that describes how this sort of phenomena works. Anne-Laure Lecunff, I don't know if I pronounced that right, over at Nest Labs describes a few concepts to make being a creator easier. She actually has designed a community like this one totally around the concept of becoming a creator. The first idea she has is curiosity. There are many reasons why curiosity is important. Curiosity, passion, autonomy, these things result in increased drive and flow state and intrinsic value. It's in our nature to be looking for change in our environments. We are really wired in our brains to be curious or to be aware. But not everything piques our interest nowadays, and hopefully we have already solved that problem with helping you develop your favorite problems list. So now you should already have those questions to prime your learning and prime your curiosity, mainly because they are helping you develop specific skill sets. Make sure that you actually have these questions available. You don't want these questions sort of squirreled away. You want them out and about. Later on, we're going to talk about how to improve your process. But for now, just have these questions somewhere that you can constantly be reminded about them so that they can be that North Star. The next thing that Nest Labs and talks about is courageousness. Courageousness is described as being comfortable with failure. This really fits into the idea of growth mindset, and that failure stimulates more questions and ideas. Technically, you actually learn better when you get questions wrong, because that actually should prime you to look for solutions. So you have to be comfortable with asking questions that you're unsure of and getting in discussions where you don't really know what you're talking about. You have to be okay with constructive feedback. Now, we already talked about how positive feedback is good for you initially, developing an interest in something, but that constructive feedback is going to help you actually with your deliberate practice, and it's going to further your interest development, right? Well, in order to deal with that constructive feedback, you need to be courageous about your actual failures. And however, be aware that constructive criticism or feedback is the act of receiving specific recommendations. Constructive feedback is not just negative feedback. Hopefully, constructive feedback is helping you realize where are the areas that you're slightly limited in, and that's where your focus should end up being. The final thing that you need for this creative sort of endeavor is inspiration. And this can come from all sorts of different avenues, but inspiration can best come from connecting to other people, networks of collaboration. And that's really what we're trying to do here at PhysioNexus. The other area for inspiration can come from your information stream. However, not all information streams are created equal. See, the books Make Time or Indistractable, they often refer to social media as infinity pools. They just go on and on and on. You can scroll forever. These are not healthy information streams. They can be, but it takes a lot of work to make them that. The companies that create these social platforms are vying for all of your attention, not just a little bit. So if you're giving them all your attention, then you won't have time to actually learn and create. So we need good, curated information streams to be healthy, and we're going to work on that. Every tweet you read, every newspaper you glance at, every show you watch, every email you skim, it's all feeding your subconscious. Your brain's going to then focus in on that, and it's going to be trying to make connections with the information when you're not in a focused mode of learning. We'll talk about diffuse learning and focused learning later on, but if you're filling that subconscious space with garbage, you won't have much to connect and create with. Garbage in, garbage out. You want to be filling it with all of the questions and the interesting information that you're trying to connect and make connections with so that you can actually produce content with. The activity for this section is, what projects do you want to work on? Also, the things that you're wanting to learn, how can you turn those things into projects? What are your current information streams, positive and negative? Be honest. Be honest with yourself. Where do you spend most of your time? Do you actually track how much time you're on certain websites or apps? A lot of phones have that feature. Have you ever actually looked at it? It can be jarring or eye-opening. It's not something you have to do constantly. It's like calorie counting. Calorie counting is not something you technically need to do all the time, but if you do a week of it, it can be very enlightening. So what are your information streams, and what are the projects that you want to move forward based on the things you want to learn?